Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this online demonstration of our SAT course. I see we have a few people logged in right now. We're expecting a few more. Nice to meet you all. My name is Andrew Colford. I'm an instructor here at Veritas Prep. The idea for today is to introduce you to this platform. We're certainly going to talk about some hard and fast SAT rules that you can use on the test, but more than anything, I want you to get comfortable with what this looks like. Having taught SAT for 6 years, SAT courses live the old-fashioned way, right? I really think that this is revolutionary stuff. It means that anybody in the world has the exact same access to the same materials and the same teacher. Furthermore, I think it has some extra benefits. For one thing, students who tend to be shy and maybe hesitant about asking questions in a large group setting can do this from the comfort of their own home and type in questions on a chat. Furthermore, we're on YouTube for today, but our courses take place in a different online platform, and there are private chat rooms in there, so if you're bashful about asking a question, you can always just ask the instructor directly. While people come on in, I would love to meet everybody we have here, so if you would, go ahead, please share your name, where you're located, and if you've thought about it, what kind of schools you're looking at, or maybe what kind of programs. I don't know where everybody is in their educational career. While we do that, I'll introduce myself. My name is Andrew Colford. As I said, I'm an instructor here with Veritas Prep. A little bit about me: I was born and raised in the California Bay Area near San Francisco, and I went to Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. And then after that, I lived in New York City for quite a few years doing this kind of work. Standardized testing. I really developed a passion and an expertise for it. And I moved back to California. I'm now in Santa Monica, where the weather today is around, I think it's probably high 60s. So just to rub that in the face of anybody on the East Coast. And it's great out here. So, still waiting for people to come on in. Again, when you're able to, go ahead and enter your name, location, and what kind of schools you're looking at. I'll give you just another minute here, and then we'll get going. There is a bit of a time lag. All right. All right, well, I'll keep my eye on the chat box there. Let's just get going. To do well on the SAT, you certainly have to have a mastery of content. You have to know your stuff. You have to know the Pythagorean theorem, special right triangles, the triangle inequality rule, the area of a circle, right? Like all of these pieces of knowledge you must have to do well. It's a necessary but not sufficient condition. So there's another kind of mindset that we need to explore, and that's taking the test in an intelligent way. So using the right tools. For all you home improvement buffs out there, right? You know that sometimes a hammer is not the best way to do a task, right? It will get the task done, but in the meantime, maybe you hit your hand and you have to go to the ER for a few hours, and then finally you come back and finish. The SAT is a time test, right? So you need to be efficient with your time. What we're going to talk about today are some strategies to help you with that. Specifically, a few here. 3 wrongs make a right. Do it yourself. And here's some advice that you're never going to get. Pick your own nose. All right, let's get to it. So, in our course, this is the way it works. I usually put up a problem on the screen, and I'll give you, for this one, I'll give you 2 minutes and a half. Minute and a half to answer these questions. I'm going to step off for just a moment, and I'll come back and we'll talk about these questions. Okay, so we had a few people join us while I was off screen there. So again, if you're just joining us, you can go ahead and share your name, your location, and what kind of programs you're thinking of for college. The reason I give you these questions here is these are examples of questions that you will not see on the SAT, right? The SAT does not care about your knowledge of German state capitals. But let's talk about questions that would appear. And these are the three strategies that we're going to talk about. Back solving using answer choices, how to deal with vocabulary and how it appears on the SAT, and picking your own numbers. All right, so more likely than not, you're going to have multiple choice questions. Now, there are a few math questions on the SAT that are not multiple choice. They're student-produced response, but otherwise everything else is multiple choice. And you need to use that to your advantage. Process of elimination. Everyone here, I assume, has taken a multiple choice test, so you're familiar with this idea. Again, this problem will probably not appear on the SAT, but the logic that we're using, the reasoning, is the type that we need. So you see, for one thing, that it's a German state, meaning that the name is probably German, and you can knock out Tampa and Guanajuato, because those certainly aren't German names. You're down to A and C. Well, you look at the root word, or the root of that word, and it looks pretty close to this one. So best guess is going to be C, right? Again, not a question you see on the SAT, but the idea, the process of elimination is the same. All right, now here's a real question. This is certainly a question that you could see on the SAT. And again, I want to give you a chance to solve it on your own, if you can. Go ahead and take a minute and a half on this, and feel free to type in the answer option once you get it. All right, apologies for that static off screen. Did anybody get an answer to this? Maybe find an answer on their own? Maybe, maybe not. All right. So this is a good old algebra question. And if you're a diligent student, you might have looked at this and immediately thought, ooh, this looks a lot like a quadratic. And it sure does, right? Goes from leading terms down to smaller exponents. But it's not a quadratic. Kind of looks like one, but it's not. And the reason it's not, of course, is the cube. The leading term goes to the power of 3. It's not a quadratic. So we can't use the quadratic equation. Not that that's a fun thing to do, but it's not what we need to do here. Here's the thing. The test, as I've mentioned, is a multiple choice test, right? So they've narrowed down the universe of possible numbers of everything that it could be. Just make sure my microphone's okay here. Yep. They've narrowed down the range of possible numbers in the whole universe, which is infinite, to just 4. The answer is going to be one of these 4 options. So why should we spend any time worrying about all the other numbers that exist in the universe? We shouldn't. What we should do is plug in, right? When you're given answer options, or I should say when you're given numbers on a math problem for the answer options, you should immediately think to back solve. Don't try and be fancy. Don't try and do the quadratic equation, whatever you need doing. You just plug it in. And usually you want to start somewhere in the middle because the numbers are listed almost always in ascending order. So you want to start with B or C. Let's start with C, right? If we plug in C for X, because that's what we're trying to find, I get 4 times 1 to the power of 3 minus 3 times 1 to the power of 2 minus 2 times 1 plus 1. Well, does that equal 0? Let's find out. 1 to the power of 3 times 4 is just 4, minus 3 times 1, minus 2, plus 1. 4 minus 3 is 1. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. And negative 1 plus 1, you can bet that's 0. And I got lucky there, right? I did get lucky because the first number that I happened to pick was right. But suppose I had picked B, right? I probably would have ended up with a pretty big negative number, something like negative 3 equals 0. And in that case, I would know that the number that I started with was too small. So I can eliminate anything smaller than that, and at the end that I have to move up with testing my answer options. Any questions about this? Does this make sense? We're good? Okay. All right. So vocab in context. Again, I'll give you a solid minute and a half on this. Give this your best shot. Okay, and one of my chat windows wasn't visible, so now I can see all the messages you were writing. I thought I was here talking to nobody, but it's good to get some affirmation. So we got Stephanie, we got Mitha. The South is pretty well represented here. We got Georgia and Florida. Great. And the two answer options that people were saying for this one are C and B. Okay. I don't know if there are any parents out there right now, but when you took the test, parents, it was a very different test. You might be aware of this, right? The SAT recently revamped its test, and Mohab is in Egypt. Nice to meet you, Mohab. So Mohab wins the furthest away from me prize, unless someone can top Egypt. Sorry, as I was saying, the SAT has changed since your parents took this test. Right? It changed in 2006, and it changed again in 2014, 15. And here's how it's changed. There's much less emphasis on vocab. I had a student one time where I was meeting her for the first time, and I said, "How's your studying going?" She said, "It's going great. My dad made me buy, one of these study guides, and he's having me study vocab for a half hour every night." And I said, "Stop! The new SAT does not care about vocabulary." And if you think about it, right, the purpose of this test is to assess your readiness for college, right? They don't care so much if you know the meaning of the word abstruse, right, or something like that. What they want to know is that you can reason out the meaning of a word in context. So the new SAT does test vocabulary to a certain extent, but it only tests it in context. It's not a vocab test. So if you have any of those old, stacks of vocab flashcards, throw them away. They're not what you should be studying. Now, in context here, we're saying the human brain is most plastic in the prenatal and early childhood time period. Now, context matters. We need to read the whole paragraph to understand what we're talking about here. In this important phase, the brain is most vulnerable, that's getting at what we're describing, to harm, but also most capable of recovery. Okay? As brain circuits stabilize over time, this plasticity becomes less pronounced. What I would encourage you to do, both on these types of questions and on reading questions in general, is to come up with your own word. The easy way out is to read the answer options first. We all want to. It's very, very natural for humans to want to do that. Because it's the easy way, right? You passively just accept the answers that they're giving you. But if you take the extra step of making yourself pick an answer before you even looked at the answers, then you can match it. So, did anybody come up with their own word for plastic? What's a word that could fit in with plastic that we might have used? Complex, maybe. Let's look at the other hints in the problem. It's a phase where the brain is vulnerable to harm, but capable of recovery. Can you think of something else that's vulnerable to harm, but capable of recovery? How about a rubber band, right? If you think of a rubber band, you can change a rubber band. You can stretch it pretty far, but it's also capable of just going back to the way it was. Flexible, elastic, yeah. Now we're getting at it. Complex, I'll say, is it kind of gets at it. It's the right direction. But when you're picking your own words, you want to be as specific as possible in how it's complex. So I would say certainly flexible and elastic are very, very good words to use here. Flexible and elastic, really, really strong words to use. All right, now we come to the answer options, and we were between B and C. So artificial, that's not what we're talking about. It's not fake. Material, if you're a legal, if something is material, it's relevant. That also is not what we're talking about. Now, I always say that students who speak another language have a certain advantage on this test because you can rely on your knowledge of root words. So if you speak French, or if you've done ballet, right, you know that plier means to bend. And Ambrose is coming to us from Massachusetts. Nice to meet you, Ambrose. Great. You know that plier is to bend. And that gets at what we're talking about. So the correct answer here is B. Any questions about that one? All right. Ooh, that looks a little scary. I'll leave you with this one. And in fact, I'll give you 2 minutes here. 2 minutes on this one, let's do it. Can't see the question. It's blurry. Go ahead and refresh the page a few times. Thanks for letting me know, Ambrose. I'll try something over here on my end. Hang tight. All right, there we go. If that ever happens, just go ahead and refresh. Sometimes, very, very rarely, we have an issue with the stream. All right, was anyone able to crack this? Anybody get an answer here? Found an answer. X equals 1 and Y equals 2. Okay. Anyone else? All right, well, as the name suggests, in a kind of disgusting joke, I didn't make that joke, I'm just teaching it. Here you want to pick your own nose, as in your own numbers. You want to be smart about it, right? Let's look at this problem. If blah, 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 right? Crazy long problem. By the way, usually the more complex a problem presents itself as, right? The more complicated it looks, usually there's a nice, easy way to figure it out. For all values of x, what is the value of y? Here's the thing. If it's true for all values of x, it shouldn't matter what you plug in for x, right? That is to say, if you plug in a value of x, y will still be the same. So Ambrose hit it right on the head. If you can say that all values of x work for this, why don't you pick a nice easy value of x for yourself? Well, 1 is a great number here. I love 1 because 1 has this great property that when it multiplies by something, you don't have to do any work. It just stays the same. So let's plug that in. Again, I'm going to color code this just so we can see. This is going to be 2 times 1. Put that in red. 2 times 1 times 1 minus y. We don't know what y is. That's what we're trying to figure out. Times 1 plus 1. There we go. Times, and of course, if you can do this in your head nice and quick, you don't need to write it out like I am, but I'm just writing it out so that everybody can see. What do we got? 3 times 1. I'll just write 3 minus 1 squared, which is 1, close parentheses, equals 2 times 1 to the power of 4, which is just 1, minus 8 times x to the power of 1, or to the power of 3, which is 1, plus 6. Okay. Are there any questions so far? And everyone understands why I can just do this, right? The problem gave me permission. It says it doesn't matter what you plug in for x. Y is always going to be the same. So if we can just figure it out one time, we'll be fine. So we simplify this out. We get 2 times, what's this? 1 plus 1. So that's 2 minus y times 2 equals negative equals 0. Okay. Well, maybe some of you can see this already. What value of y is going to make this equal to 0? Well, it's 2, right? Because if I plug in 2 right here, it's going to be 2 minus 2 is 0. Times 2 times 2, still 0. But if you want to see that written out, right, you can just divide both sides by 2. 0 divided by 2 is still 0. Yep. You can divide by 2 again, and then you're left with 2 minus y equals 0. Well, y has to be 2. Yep. Great job, Ambrose and Abbas. It's not just for 1, though, right? And Abbas said negative 1. Exactly. Doesn't matter what you plug in. 1, negative 1. Anything else I want to say about this? Nope. That's all she wrote. Any questions about this problem or this strategy? Pick your own nose. Disgusting, but it works. Okay, to recap here. On the SAT, answers are assets. So use the back solving strategy that we talked about. If they give you answer options, they want you to use those. Ignoring the answer options is ignoring half of the information that they're giving you. You don't have to show your work, right? Get there creatively. And you don't have to memorize vocabulary. I promise you, you don't. Even though your parents did, you don't. So, strategy. Strategy and content are what you need to do well on this test. Today we've just talked about strategy. To get that content, you really, really do need to set aside, I would say, depending on how, how strong a student you are already, 2 to 4 months of studying. 2 to 4 months of studying to really, really get good at this. And practice enough so that you're ready to take the test. I am more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have about the test generally, about Veritas in specific. Feel free to just write those in the chat box, and we'll talk about them. Oh, you should write my email address if you need it, if you're interested in learning more about our courses. It's ACOLF as in Frank, ORD at veritasprep.com. You can also visit our website, veritasprep.com. Any questions about what we talked about today? Again, just a little taste of what this platform looks like. Just going to check one thing with the sound here. About the SAT essay. Great question, Ambrose. Let me go adjust the sound and I'll be right back. So Ambrose asked a great question. He said, what about the SAT essay? The SAT does have an essay. Here's the thing. It is nowhere near as important as the verbal and quantitative sections, right? Or I should say I just taught a GRE course this morning, so I'm still calling it in its regular name. So the math and reading sections. The essay really is more or less for college admissions somewhat of a tiebreaker. So if you have two very, very similar students coming from the same background and the same grades and the same SAT scores, the essay is a way for colleges to see how you've performed under time pressure. For that reason, we cover the essay in our course, but we really, really don't spend a whole lot of time on it. We spend a session on it, but most of our course is geared towards the multiple choice sections. Here's what you need to know about the essay. The essay, the essay that they want you to write is an analysis of a piece of writing. So if anyone here is signed up for AP English Language or AP English Lit, you're probably going to do very well on the essay because that's what they want you to do. The old SAT essay, it used to be, was you were responsible for creating an argument. So it was something very vague like, what is a hero? And then they would give you a quote by Martin Luther King or Gandhi or someone, and you would have to, out of thin air, write an essay about what it means to be a hero. Now that was a double-edged sword, of course, right? You could basically just come in prepared to write any essay you want and fit it around the topic. And so what the SAT has done, at the behest of admissions committees, because this is what they want. What the SAT has done is turned it into an analytical writing assignment, basically. You're going to read a very long paragraph of someone has written, maybe a critique of a certain policy, and then your job is going to be to explain how the author makes his or her point. What math level do you recommend for us to take? So I know that we have a very international crowd here this morning, which I love, and that's again another reason why I love this platform. Math designations have different names in different parts of the world. In the American system, the SAT-2 covers, at its core, algebra, right? That's probably the largest component, geometry, and then up into the beginnings of Algebra 2 trigonometry. You don't need calculus. You don't need calculus for the SAT. So fundamentally you need arithmetic, algebra, geometry, and then the easier material of Algebra 2 trigonometry. I don't know what that translates to in different areas of the world, but that's what it is in the United States. I taught very briefly, not very briefly, but quite a few years at a French school in New York. And they didn't designate different subjects. They just had math. It was just called math all 4 years. And to a certain extent, that kind of makes sense, right? Like they were very big on integrating what they learned into different ideas. In the American system, it's very like A to B to C to D. Like first you learn algebra, then you learn geometry, then it's algebra 2, then it's trig, and then calc A, B, B, C, and beyond. Other questions about this, about the SAT? All right. Well, again, I'll leave you with my email address, as well as, I'll write that a little bit neater. A little messy. That's ACOLFORD Veritas Prep, one word, .com. That, of course, is our website. Check it out. Nice to meet you all. I'll be around for the next 2 or 3 minutes or so. If you have any last-minute questions, just go ahead and type them in the chat box. Have a nice weekend.